What is a fistula?
A fistula is, you want to describe it?
No, do it in your doctor talk, and then they can interpret it. I can tell you in idiot's terms, layman terms, but she can tell
by
you
all
medical.
means.
Do you want people on the podcast to understand it, or do you want to hear the medically
let's do the medical
accurate?
one, and then you can just agree. And
all right, go
ahead. You
ahead.
know what you're talking about. I am Ken White. I'm the lead pastor of Forest Park Covenant Church, and we have this podcast that we do called On Mission, and in it we try to talk with people in our fellowship about some of the things that they've been involved in ministry. Sometimes it's here, sometimes it's locally, sometimes it's throughout the world. And so we're here with Josephine and Patrick Spitzley, who have just kind of something to share about a ministry that they just were involved in recently. But first, maybe just a little thumbnail sketch about who you are. Maybe like how long you guys been married and your kids and their names and things like that. Josephine, why don't you tell us?
We've been married 11 and a half years, I think. Yep.
Pretty close.
And we have a 5-year-old daughter, Braylon, and a 3-year-old son, Zeke. And they both were with us on this mission.
Yeah. When we're Michigan grads, so was Braylon named after Braylon Edwards, the Michigan receiver?
No, not necessarily. But yes, that was the thought, because I did love Braylon Edwards, and yes, go blue. But she is named after the first baby I ever delivered. I'm an OBGYN, and yeah, that was a special moment for me, and it was a cool name. So we named her after that baby.
Yeah. 11 and a half years. If I quiz you on the exact date of the anniversary, will you get that right, Patrick?
Definitely.
Which is?
September 29th.
Oh, there you go.
2012.
Well, say a little bit about what you do in your work life.
I am a real estate investor. I'm a real estate broker and a licensed builder. So we build investment properties in Grand Rapids, Michigan that we rent. So everything that we build, we rent.
Okay. How long have you been doing that?
13, 14 years now.
Okay. Michigan State guy.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's hard to bite my tongue on the Go Blue comment, but I elected to.
We're really appreciative of that. Although if you had said something, it wouldn't have mattered to Josephine and us, because we just recently won the national championship. Just wanted to say that to everybody out there in case you didn't know.
I wanted Michigan State to win that game and Michigan to lose it. So I generally want Michigan to win, but it's not possible in that scenario.
Well, let's move on to something more important. You just recently were in a country in Africa. I'm going to let you say a little bit about where that is and what you were doing. Josephine, can you?
Yep, we went to Togo, which it was my third visit to Togo, where we worked with the organization Samaritan's Purse and ABWE with a Christian hospital there. And I was there we were all there, the whole family, for 4 weeks. And I treat women with problems, gynecologic problems, and obstetrical issues. They're starting their OB unit again, so we started delivering the first babies in Togo last month. And I did a lot of surgeries there. And so that was kind of the mission, is to treat the people there at the Christian hospital. There also there are ministers there, pastors local, who talk to the patients every day that they're in the hospital. They have what's called the Rapha house, which Rapha is like, God, our healer.
Hebrew for healing, yeah.
And so they stay at the Rapha house, and they get ministered to while they're there as well. So it's a really cool experience.
Well, so when Josephine was doing the operations and surgeries, what was your main set of duties?
I was making sure that she could do operations and surgeries.
By doing what? Like taking care of the kids? Is
Yeah,
that what,
a lot of taking care of the kids, a lot of trying to help her conserve energy so that, these are big open cases where she's on her feet for hours at a time, and they turn the room quick, and then she's right back at it hours at a time.
Wow.
I got to imagine exhausting herself mentally too, because it didn't look easy when I was watching. So I tried to have the kids available and ready and happy when she showed up, but also try to get her some rest and keep her spirits high.
Yeah. I don't think this is your first time there for either of you. You've been there 3 times at least. So, and I think, Patrick, you've been there more than...
Yeah, I was there this time last year. We went as well.
Yeah. Were you there for a month last time, or is this a longer trip than you've normally taken?
Last year we went for 2 weeks.
Okay.
We have been to Nigeria together for a month in the past, doing some same medical mission work there.
Yeah.
Tanzania.
But this was by far the longest trip for the whole family with the kids.
Yeah. So I thought that Togo was the sort of main place that you guys have been going, but it sounds like you've been to other places.
Yes,
Okay.
we have been. Through my training, I went to a lot of different places. Just knowing I went into medicine, knowing I wanted to do mission work with it. So I'm dabbled in it here and there on the way.
Is there a big difference between being there for 2 weeks and 4 weeks, or is it sort of all about the same? And how would you just describe the experience of being in Africa for a length of time?
For me, it starts to feel like you're living there.
Yeah.
So I would say with 2 weeks, I should say you're counting down the days like you're anxious to leave, but there's 13 days left, 10 days left, 7 days left. So it's kind of on your mind that you're leaving soon. When you start to get to a duration of 4 weeks, or we've done some 6-week trips, your mind kind of flips to it's a longer term stay, and you get more settled. You kind of find a routine. You kind of develop habits. What do they say? It takes 21 days to develop a habit. So you kind of establish what your time looks like when you're there for, I guess, 3 weeks, but upwards of 4 like we were this time.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting.
Braylon said she wanted to live there forever, so she felt it was home.
What did Braylon like about being in Africa?
We lived on the mission compound there with all the other missionaries and mission kids. So it was the friends. She wanted to stay and be with her missionary kid friends.
Yeah. So tell me how would you describe where Togo is in Africa?
So a little bit in the armpit of Africa, like the northwest corner it's a little sliver of a country, but borders the sea.
Is it in the under the Horn, or is it more up toward the top, northwest? Sort of what do they call that little?
Yeah, it's under.
Do the Michigan thing. It's over here.
Yeah,
it's right there.
It's right there on the bottom.
It's an upside down Michigan.
Europe,
Yeah.
It's over here.
Yeah, Africa is the Michigan of
the upside down thumb. It's in.
It's in the armpit. Yeah.
How would you describe the climate of Togo? Like, what is it like right now? There in
Way
February?
too hot.
Way too hot. So
we are actually loving it being colder here.
Oh,
I have never liked Michigan cold until I lived in Africa for a month and wanted to come back to the snow.
So 80, 90 degrees?
100.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. I mean, to the point where at least the hospital, I shouldn't say shuts down, but from noon to 2 every day, they don't start any cases. You go and eat. A lot of the missionaries take naps during that time. And it's, from my perspective, it's a way to pass the time and just get to some, I shouldn't say more pleasant weather, but it's just so hot, and it's just, you're sweating so, like, just walking out of the door is exhausting because you're just hit with this wave of heat. So in our case, that's when I would try to get the kids to take a nap, and oftentimes I would push it till 3:00, and then we'd go back outside about 3:00.
Yeah.
Spoken like a true Michigander that lives in winter, right?
Yeah. Well, the topography is mountains or forests or both, near the ocean, near a lake. What's it like?
Yeah, Togo does border the ocean, but only a small portion of it, and so
40 miles.
40
miles of width on the ocean.
Oh,
yeah, and so we were much more inland, like 3 hours in from that, near some mountains.
Yeah. How did you decide on Togo? What drew you to that particular place over your?
I had been there before, so I went during my residency training. Our program director, Dr. Barquette, took the residents there. He's done that year after year. He's been going for 30 years, and so I went with him. Okay. And it was a easy transition when he retired to say, I could take that lead now, and now I can take the residents there. So we took 2 resident physicians with us, so I was also training them while we were there. So that was a blessing too, to just have one of them brought their family, and then another one just her, but to just see the love for God and service, and see that they could do that with their skills in OBGYN, and also watch them progress in surgery and confidence along the way was really cool.
Yeah, it sounds great. So going back to the actual work you were doing, can you describe, just say what the different kinds of operations you were doing?
So hysterectomies were the main one. Myomectomy is another thing, like removing someone's fibroids from their uterus. And a tuboplasty, where we're working on the fallopian tubes. So myomectomies and tuboplasties are more for people with infertility that are struggling with trying to have babies, which is a very important thing for people in Togo. That's their livelihood.
Yeah.
Is most women there are just that's what they do. They have babies. And so when they can't have babies, it's really heartbreaking. And so they will do a lot to get treated for that. And so they'll have these major open surgeries to remove fibroids or basically do plastic surgery on their fallopian tubes that can be damaged in various ways.
Yeah. How big are the uteruses supposed to be versus the ones you took out?
So a normal uterus is maybe the size of my fist, but definitely these women look like they're pregnant, like 30 weeks pregnant with their uterus just being massive, usually with just massive fibroids. I found out a fistula patient was dry today. After 2
still
weeks,
dry.
Catheters out.
All right, I'll give
Fistula is, what is a fistula?
A fistula is, you want to describe it?
No, do it in your doctor talk, and then they can interpret it. I can tell you in idiot's terms, layman terms, but she can tell
by
you
all
in medical. Do you want people on the podcast to understand it, or do you want to hear the medically
let's do the medical
accurate?
one, and then you can just agree and
All right,
look
go
like you
ahead.
know what you're talking about.
There's basically a hole between the bladder and the vagina.
Okay.
And so someone then is constantly leaking urine.
Oh, okay.
Because that hole is just constantly open. So it very rarely happens in our country, but you know what you see and what's refreshing about going to Africa is seeing like all the preventative stuff we do here in the US really works, because we go to Africa and you see they have fistulas and cervical cancer and things that we get to before they become a problem. But so you get a fistula basically there by obstructed labor. So someone who is, maybe delivering in the village and never makes it to a hospital, and they can't push out their baby. They don't have access to C-sections or interventions. And so that hole erodes in the vagina, and then they leak, and they're basically shunned by their whole community because they smell. And so I was able to fix one of those holes, and I just know how life-changing that can be for somebody. And I just got news today because we keep a catheter in for 2 weeks and then take it out and see if they're leaking anymore, and she is dry.
Yeah. Did she do okay there? Was that?
Yeah, that was pretty accurate relative to my perspective. The summary is people can't hold their urine, therefore they stink like pee, and then you're an outcast from society. Yeah. Because you can't be with you. I guess you can be with your family if they're accepting of the fact that it smells like pee. You ever been around a litter box that's uncleaned? Yeah. Are you going to somebody's house like, man, a cat lives here and there's that stink and that odor?
Yeah.
That's my version of it. That if you can't hold your pee and it's running down your leg, or even if you retain it somehow, it just stinks and you're dirty. Yeah. So you're an outcast from society. You're not welcomed into social circles. It might be hard to hold the job. She's blessed with an ability to fix that.
Yeah.
But she has to be there because they can't come here to get her to fix it. So without her willingness to go there and do that, that person would leak urine. Yeah. For the rest of their life potentially.
We're just so accommodated to those things. We don't realize that those things are preventatively life-changing, whereas there they change it, after they have that affliction, right?
Yeah.
Well, and when she's not there, or at least when there's not an OBGYN there, there's just no help.
Yeah.
They have to go to another country.
Were you
and find somebody qualified? I mean, even a fistula repair is abnormal in OBGYN world. I don't know what percentage of your, say, partners and cohorts would repair a fistula. Yeah. Is the answer 100%?
Even I don't feel great about doing it because I don't do it often.
And she spent a month in Nigeria doing specifically fistula repair. So it's kind of I shouldn't say it's a specialty, but she's semi more specialized in that sense.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So that person now doesn't have to pee on themselves anymore.
Yeah. Because
she just went to Africa and surgery didn't take you but probably an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Yeah.
but she has to be there to do that.
You're not the only surgeon, but you're the primary surgeon, and everybody
So
else is
just
learning?
a gynecologist. There are full-time general surgeons at this hospital.
Oh, there are. Okay.
Yep. So they'll do a lot of the things as well. They do a lot of gynecology and orthopedic surgery, and so we were also helping them to learn how to do C-sections because they're going to be doing C-sections now. So the general surgeons will be doing C-sections.
Yeah.
I saw a case where the general surgeons did a case. Guy broke his arm years ago, and there's a section of bone that just was dead, literally dead, and never reattached, had no blood flow or anything. So they cut him open and pulled that chunk of dead bone out because he broke his arm. He was in a village somewhere, never got help, just let it heal. That's that.
Wow. So there was a lot of pain there with the piece of bone in there?
I would imagine years of pain.
Yeah.
And a dead piece of bone in there. And Dr. Kuehler said eventually the body will push that out.
Yeah.
So over time, eventually that bone would have poked through his skin and been released. Am I getting too graphic for a podcast?
Oh, no.
This is the gross
No,
stuff that I didn't get into, but yeah.
Yeah, well,
This is dinner at our house. We talk about gross stuff.
Yeah, we use the V word in public. And
do they ever talk about real estate at the dinner table, or is it all this conversation here?
Nobody cares about real estate. It's nowhere near as interesting.
A lot
as
of
this stuff.
numbers.
Yeah.
It's not as, yeah.
They weren't even aware I'm in real estate there. I was just dad.
Would you ever flip the script and be in Togo, 11 months of the year and here 1 month? Is that ever on the table?
Yeah.
It's on the table.
Okay. Gotcha.
In the right season of life.
I'm hoping this isn't the first time that grandparents have heard this, but it's one of those things.
It's always been a potential, but like I say, that's kind of what I envisioned would be I would be a full-time missionary, but now I have a job that supports me going, and I can train residents who may go as well, and I can do that all while my kids get a great education here.
And it's your mom that took you.
Right.
It's your mom who took you traveling all the time. So if you're gonna.
Yes, it is her fault. Yeah, she knows. She's the first one who sent me the application to go on my first trip to Africa with mission work through our church. She's like,
that's great.
And she wrote on the back, I almost didn't send you this application because I know you'll get in and I know you'll go, but I don't really want you to. But here. Yeah.
And the range of patients, like you're inland about 3 hours, but is it all the entire country of Togo is coming towards you, or is it a couple of countries, or just locally? How would you describe that?
We do. They do border Ghana, and so there are people from Togo and Ghana, and definitely all the way from the coast. They'll come to us just because we're the only really well-trained gynecologists around.
Okay. You were saying that there are hours at a time. Can you say how long did you?
Her cases?
Yeah. How would you have? How did you experience it as somebody who's not actually doing the operation?
I would from being the dad at home that was hoping she'd come help with the kids occasionally. It was definitely no less than 2 hour cases. I guess there are a few exceptions, but generally a big open myomectomy or a hysterectomy was at minimum 2 hours. More often it would take the whole morning. So she would leave at about 8. The patient would be ready, say 8:30, 9 o'clock, and she'd be back to lunch maybe around 12:15. And sometimes it wasn't until 1:30. So those cases are probably 2 to 4 hours.
Yeah. Were you
on
working
average.
8 to 5 every day, or was it more? Was it longer? It just
Yeah, about 8 to 5 every day, but also they were reopening the OB unit, and so you're on call 24 hours for delivery. So we just always had a phone available because we were staying right on the campus, so we could just run back and forth at night if we needed to.
Was it a Monday through Friday work week, or were you working just one day off, or how did that work for you?
Every day you go check on patients and round on patients, but surgeries were Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays.
Okay.
They use Wednesdays as a ministry day, so we got to go check out some local ministries in Togo that ABWE also does. There's a blind school there that they are teaching with a Christian curriculum, a bunch of kids from the area that are blind from either born that way or developed blindness. So that was cool to see. The missionaries go into the Muslim communities and go just play games and do Bible stories with the kids. So we did that on some Wednesdays with our kids. That was fun.
A, B, W, and E. Is that what you said? So what does that stand for?
Yeah, I forget what it stands for.
African probably is the A.
I didn't even consider that it probably stood for something.
We're just going to put it right here, and then we're going to look that up, and it'll say it right here.
It's something Baptist, evangelical, something.
Yeah, yeah. You know that Forest Park, FPCC is Forest Park Covenant Church.
Yeah,
just, you know.
I do know that.
Yeah, that's good.
I probably could have gotten that.
So how many total patients did you see, do you think?
Well, probably... I was there with Dr. Barquette, who was my old program director. He was there as well. So we were both seeing clinic patients as well as doing surgery. So we saw maybe 20 to 30 patients a day and then did surgery on 2 to 4 a day.
20 to 30 in the clinic.
Clinic.
Which is how you book the surgeries.
Yeah. Well, this is kind of a question. It's a rewind question, just kind of how you ended up getting into Togo. So I've known you guys for a few years, and so it's a question of Patrick. It's like, I know that Josephine has always wanted to be in mission work. I'm not sure, in our conversations, you probably knew you always wanted to be with Josephine, so you were going to be involved in mission work. And so I'd like you to just kind of describe that, because a lot of times when we think about doing something like this, it's hard for us to conceive of, and sometimes we find ourselves going into it in a different kind of way than we would have thought of. So it's sort of an open question. How would you describe that pathway for you?
I really only intended to stay in the United States, go fishing in Canada, and maybe go to Mexico once for my entire life. And then I met her. And it's always been her goal to be to more countries than she is years old. So she's under 40 years old, and she's been to 40 countries now. So we're allowed to stay in our own country or repeat countries at this time. But soon we'll be on a mission to check all these other countries off. I never cared about that. I never thought about that. So it was just never really on my radar to travel. And I don't know how many countries I've been to, but probably 30 or 32.
Oh, okay.
We went to Japan when I was 23, and that was probably my second or third country. So, I mean, that gives you an idea as to how much travel we've done. I'm 39 now. So in the 16 years we've been together. It was never my intention to do any of these things, but I knew when I met her that it was her intention. I knew it was likely I would be in Africa, and I might have no kids when I met her. So there's the compromises. We now live in Muskegon with a couple of kids, and we go do these trips. And, and I've developed a heart for it. I really enjoy it. It's a great experience. I didn't grow up thinking that I'd be doing things like this, but I quickly realized if I wanted to spend time with her, I was going to.
Well, that's interesting. So how would you describe that desire to travel? Was it mission work first and then travel, or just mission work became part of? So have you always wanted to travel, and why is that?
Oh, yeah, I don't know. I guess I just always have liked to travel. My mom liked to travel, and I grew up at least traveling around with her a bit, and I just really enjoyed it. Loved it. And then I went on a mission trip with my church in high school, and so that's what made me want to go into medicine and do mission work with medicine. Yeah,
that's wonderful. Has it been what you expected it to be, or how would you describe going into that and wanting to do that with expectations and then the reality of it? Has it been everything you hoped it to be, or has it been a little bit different? Or
I think I've always learned with God not to have much, not to have expectations, but just to let Him guide me, and it'll be what I have planned for myself is usually nothing compared to what He orchestrates. So that's how things have gone. I think, I thought I'm going to do mission work. There's going to be no place in my life for a husband or kids because it's going to be too hard to convince someone else to go to Africa with me. And yet here I am, married with 2 kids, still being able to do mission work is just an example of He has greater plans than I couldn't imagine that could have worked out, but it is.
Yeah. I'm just wondering too, it's such a dramatic thing for most of us to think to go to someplace like Togo, and then you go there, and you guys have traveled a lot. So I'm just wondering, for instance, on this last trip, what do you feel like God was kind of teaching you in this last time, like just to take care of kids, or
patience? Everything moves slower, life moves slower, and then you bring your kids, and it just requires so much patience, and it's very much outside of at my house. I know I know what drawer the spoons are in if my kid needs a spoon, and you're learning all of that on a trip like this. So I got to a spot where you just had to be so patient. And so, of course, it's with my kids and with travel, and really everything's outside of your control. We're kind of used to, in your own home and in your own community, you're used to having some say in how your day goes and how your time is spent, and you can coordinate and lead that a bit. But there, at least in my case, that's my answer, is I had to develop an extreme level of patience. Now, I've known that about these types of trips, but I typically don't have my kids with me. Well, for a lot of them, I didn't even have kids. So it was a new experience bringing my kids, and I would say that's the one that jumped out at me when you asked the question.
Yeah. How would you answer that question, Josephine?
I think this time God was impressing on my heart just that the desire to share it with other people. And that, I've always thought that I have been a bit like, this is my thing. I love Africa. I could never convince other people to do it, but to share it with other people, to bring residents with us and to teach them and to see the desire in their heart to be servants now and potentially in the future is really exciting for me. And to talk to people about it coming back and see their potential desire to go, that really excites me to help them fulfill that desire of their heart.
We went with a resident last year, and that resident is now an attending, so she doesn't have to serve under an attending anymore, and she's going to be there in April. So had Josephine not accompanied her to Togo, I think it's unlikely she would have found it without Josephine. So it's I would say that Josephine is planting seeds for others that then get watered, and there's some hope or some potential that they go on trips on their own, or they share in that way, or maybe they're just exposed to that world a bit, and it might mean something to them.
Yeah. This there's sort of two more questions I want to ask. One is this open-ended question, like whenever I'm talking with people, I'm always just sort of following the discussion, but there's always this sense that I have that you've had an experience, or might have been something that I'm just not understanding that you would want to share. Like, so as you just think about this last trip or all your trips together, is there something that you think about that this is something that I'd like to just share about these trips or this trip?
I think something I'd like to share is that this church has been really great, like just in supporting us. Like that was really cool for me. Alyssa, who's in our church, like reached out to me because she's from Africa.
Yeah, born and raised in Kenya, I think.
Yes, yeah.
Or some affiliation.
Not Kenya, but
not Kenya.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
She knows.
I do, but
we'll stay to the continent. Yeah. Definitely Africa.
Burkina Faso. No, I think Burkina Faso. But anyways, so she just knew I was going and reached out like, how can I help? Can I come help you pack? And I didn't know I was going to need help packing. I didn't know that was going to be a really hard, stressful thing, but she's done this a million times and she knows. And she was a missionary kid living there and having people bring her stuff. She knew that was going to be difficult, and she came and helped, and I'm just really grateful for her. And Luke took us to the airport in the church van because we had 8 bags full of medical supplies and so much supplies for the missionaries. Like we just couldn't haul all of that in our family, and just it was really cool how the church showed up for us. Just friends that we have in this church, and I love that about Forest Park.
Yeah, that's great. How would you answer that question? Anything that you'd want to?
She did great.
She did great. Well, good job, Josephine.
Good
job. This last question is really just sort of like looking into the future, and it's not so much asking you like, what are you going to do with mission work, so much as it is just like, where are you seeing God at work in your life, and what are you wanting to be doing in the next year, 2 years, however time frame you want to be thinking about that? I'm sure you're thinking about the future, but what's going on for you guys for the coming future time?
What's your answer?
I think we want to continue to certainly be involved in medical missions somehow, and certainly encourage others to come and to bring residents or students or anyone that we could, potentially light a fire in them.
Yeah.
You could name anywhere on the planet right now, and Josephine would go there without anybody else. And there's very few people that are that way. They will only go with somebody else, or that someplace that, was a warm referral, or somebody's been there. Josephine is cut from a different cloth in that she will be the trailblazer to anywhere. It doesn't matter what you name. And that's abnormal. So from my perspective, a role that she's found in this is she can be the trailblazer and then the encourager and the inviter as far as these types of things and trips and travel. And I don't know. A lot of people like us just want to stay in the United States or in Michigan. By us, I mean, I was born and raised here locally, and I didn't really intend to ever go and do these types of things. If it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be doing any of these things. So where I'm going with this is I think that's that might be what's on our hearts now is likely more of what we're doing. We don't always know where and when and how, and it changes when with seasons of life.
Yeah.
She's very much in a leadership role now. So from my perspective, it was different when she was a resident. She was under an attending doctor. Now it's like she's the guy in the OR. She is the one. All the responsibility is on her. So it's I think there's some digesting and some processing that goes on, at least for me, every time after this. And it's always hard to know what the next one looks like. It always takes me a little while to get removed enough from having been there to be able to develop a bit of a plan.
Yeah.
So it's clear as mud, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I think you have.
We'll look for God's guidance, and I think our kids hopefully are involved in some of it. It's fun to see that.
Yeah.
Hopefully passion grow in them too.
Well, it's an amazing story, and I know that you guys are going to be involved in these in the future. I'm sure we'll have some future opportunities to talk with you. We're looking forward to not only what God's going to be doing in your life, but also how we can support you as a church. And this is a church that really loves mission work, and so we're really glad to hear all this. So thanks for joining us. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thanks.